It's All Things MMA on KCLR and Scoreline.ie. My name is Ken McGuire, joined as always this week, as we do by every week, hence why I say as always, by Miles Price, professional fighter, Team Rhino Kilkenny head coach, and he of Miles Price Fitness. How are things? How you doing?
All good, all good. Yeah, good
Excellent.
day today. Yeah, so yeah, everyone's going good. Good start to the day.
Miles, last week, in general, I think we're doing pretty good. Yeah, I think life has been pretty good. I think as we're going to talk about it now, the fights at the weekend turned out to be pretty good as well. Last week we were doing a build up to UFC 261. We had 3 titles on the line. We had the welterweight title rematch between Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal, and then we saw Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili, along with Valentina Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade. I want to start, Miles, for this week though at the beginning of the main card, if we can, because two of the standouts weren't so much in the victories, but in the injuries that were suffered by fighters. One of them pretty extreme, and one of them is starting to become a little bit more common. Conor McGregor might have suffered a bit of this against Dustin Poirier. We've seen Henry Cejudo suffer from this as well, and it was the first fight on the main card. We had Anthony Smith take on Jimmy Crute, and I didn't know an awful lot about Crute's side of things. Having watched the fight, I can say that, man, that guy, while he's going through an immense amount of pain and trying to stand on one leg, he is all heart and was absolutely determined to finish things as much as he could. But he caught a nasty low calf kick from Anthony Smith kind of midway through the first round, but that seemed to switch off his foot. It's just like the whole thing deadened. Do you know much about it, or maybe what causes it?
If I was being completely honest with you, that's the only fight I didn't see on the main card.
Oh no!
I wanted to get around to watching it as well, because I heard that, because I was very curious about watching that as well, because I heard that it was very similar to what happened, as you said, with Cejudo and McGregor before. Yeah. So I have to look into it, if I was being honest with you, Ken. You know, from what I see, it seems to be just like a real tender spot to hit, and it just limits movement very, very quickly. If you get the precision right and the timing right, you know, this could be, I'll be honest with you, this could be one of those techniques that could be banned from the UFC.
That was my next question, because I've seen it in certain quarters, in the same way that you know, the old school kind of 12-6 elbows were banned, like punches to the back of the head obviously were banned. We've seen the new unified rules introduce cases where you can't knee a downed opponent, you can't kick a downed opponent, but there has been calls in certain quarters to ban low calf kicks.
I think that that's a good way to go, if I was being honest. I feel like that sometimes there's just techniques that are just too, I don't know. I'm not sure what my standing is quite yet. All I know is that we could be going through just a wave of it and then it exits. But it really does kind of take like a working through period, unfortunately, you know, where, you know, if there seems to be a massive amount of these instances happening, then I think that they will take it out, because then they will just, you know, it won't be a mixed martial arts competition after a while. Like, everybody will be like, who's the first to get these super low calf kicks in, limit movement and stop a fight, you know, which kind of defeats the purpose of the art in itself. So I think it's a time will tell kind of thing, like, you know. And look, you know, the natural order and evolution of things is that guys start finding defenses, guys start finding ways to nullify it and to get guys paying for throwing shots like that. But for now, it seems very devastating, you know, and like I've taken a good handful of them in sparring myself, not in any fights, but I haven't sparring. And it does affect you, like, and it's not even just at the training session. It would be like, a couple of days after. It's pretty gruesome, like the pain that you get from it.
Without going into gory detail, for people that are wondering, the kick seemed to just kind of catch him like just at the back of the knee, or just below the knee, above the calf, but instantly switched off the use of his foot to the point where if he stepped back, his foot would crumble. It looked like it kind of looked like he'd broken his foot. There, they call it a drop foot, and then he's obviously very much aware of what's going on, and he'd said it himself post fight. He's like, my foot just switched off, that was it. So in looking to continue the fight, he tries to take it to the ground. He struggled to the stool for the end of the first round. And when he got up off the stool for the second round, it seemed fine. It was like, okay, well, maybe, like you're saying, there's a little bit of a kind of a wearing off period. It might be coming around. But he took 2 steps forward. The doctor took one look at him and said, no, that's it. You're done. Yeah. There's no physical way that we can allow you to continue on that. And again, post fight, he was like, you know what? I knew this was going on. I was just happy to go out there. I was going to pull guard and just see how long I could last and keep going. He was determined to continue, even though, physically the body might be telling him something.
Yeah, sure. What else have you got to lose, really? Like, when you're in that place, like, it's like, oh, sure, look, we might as well just try and go out to all depths of hell here and go through it till the end, sure. Either way, it's going to be a hurtful process to get over that, like, so you might as well just go through it, really. I can see where he's coming from with that,
Well, one guy who's gone through a hurtful process, and actually 2 guys, because we've spoken before about the mental side of the preparation side of spending so long getting ready for a big fight, and in some cases the fight is pulled from you at the weigh-in stage, and it's really kind of last minute side of things. Somebody fails a weight cut, or somebody's taken ill, and there's still a day or 2 or 3 days out from the fight. You might be lucky, you might get a replacement, so that your own effort, your own training work doesn't go to waste at this stage. The second fight on the main card was 2 veterans of the sport. They had met 11 years previous. Uriah Hall and Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman, the first man to hand Uriah Hall a defeat. Hall says that Weidman was the guy that introduced him to fear. He didn't know fear before he fought Chris Weidman, and he's seen Chris Weidman fight many times since. So it was nice for these 2 guys to face off again. But 17 seconds into the first round, it was all over and done. On camera, we see again Weidman goes to throw that super low kick. It looks like it's checked by Hall, but snaps his tibia and fibula at the same time.
God, it was gut wrenching, wasn't it? It was absolutely horrible to watch.
And there's something bad going on when the TV cameras won't show anything that's happening that side of the cage. We were just left with we were shown on the live footage of it. We were just showing pictures of Uriah Hall just sitting in the corner, not even watching what was going on behind him, because he can audibly hear, despite the fact that there's now 15,000 people in the stadium, he can audibly hear the pain that Chris Weidman is going through. Thankfully, we know at this stage he's come through a successful surgery, but we saw this with the likes of Anderson Silva, and it was Silva against Weidman at the time when Silva snapped his leg with the kick that was thrown. What do you think this does for Weidman so far along in his career?
Well, I think that I don't think he's going to get judged too harshly on losing like that. You know what I mean? It's not really like, you can't really go like, oh, he went 3 or 5 rounds and he looks sloppy. I mean, that could happen to anybody. Like they say, when you're kicking, that an old school mentality of striking is to kick with the center of your shin. Because that's how those breaks actually happen. Because the weakest part of like a stick, say, is always the center of a stick. So. You're always kind of meant to kick with your instep, and those kind of Dutch style checks aren't necessarily like Thai checks where you lift your knee and you flex your foot. A lot of MMA guys don't really do that anymore, because you're standing on one leg, you know, it's not the best position for if somebody transitions from like a feint to a takedown, you know, you're on one leg. So a lot of the time guys just step in to ride the leg kick, or they lift their knee slightly and step forward, like almost like they're stepping in to throw like a power shot to distribute their weight onto the right leg. So when you slightly lift your front knee and turn it out and somebody kicks and it's the center of the shin, you know, you're kicking the knee, the strongest part, like, you know, and the center of the shin hits the knee, and that's where the break is going to happen, you know. So it kind of turns you off even throwing leg kicks, really, like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to kick with the instep. And I feel like that, you know, actually from what I've heard, when you get that surgery, I could be wrong now, but I've heard on a couple of occasions that when you get that surgery, your shin actually comes back a lot stronger, because they have to stick like a metal rod to kind of secure your shin moving forward. So it's kind of, it's wouldn't say it's impossible, but from what I've heard, it's like, you know, it's gruesome when it happens, but you do get a strong shin, obviously, when you have a steel rod, like acting as your shin moving forward. But I mean, it's I mean, I don't think it's done anything really to his name. It's unfortunate. That certainly hasn't helped, but I think he's just in the same position that he has been before. And I think it's crazy that he did that to Anderson. That happened to Anderson Silva years ago with him. And I think he was the next guy for that to happen to. I think the last time that happened was against Anderson Silva all that time ago.
That's 7-8 years ago.
Mad.
What about the other side of it? What about for, like, we didn't hear too much from Uriah Hall in the immediate kind of aftermath of it. But if that was you as an athlete and as a fighter, and you're in the cage and you've spent 3 months preparing for this whole thing, and then to see the fight kind of, I suppose, taken away from you, you know, before you've actually had a chance to do anything. I think even one of the tweets from Dana White afterwards is that unfortunately Uriah Hall now gets the record of being the first UFC fighter to win a bout without having a single strike thrown. You know, you don't get to showcase those things. You don't get to, you know.
There's going to be a quick turnaround for her. Excuse for interrupting you, but I feel like there's probably just going to be a quick turnaround for Uriah.
Yeah, I
think that's it. I don't think that, like, I can't see any reason why he wouldn't be back in fighting in like a month's time, really. You know what I mean? Sure, he was in there for like 17 seconds. He hasn't taken any damage. Nothing's happened to him. You know what I mean?
But like, it would be worthwhile getting him in there sooner rather than later, given that he's put in all of this preparation for something.
Yeah, I think the only thing that he might like want a bit of time for is to do the cut again, depending on how much he loses.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know what type of cut he has, but, you know, if it's anything like my fucking cut anyway, like, he's going to need about 6 weeks.
The pandemic has been kind to everybody.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like Skeletor out with He-Man going into my fight week.
Miles, the three title fights, and we'll start with the women's flyweight side of things. My take on it last week was that Valentina Shevchenko, it was going to be business as usual. Jessica Andrade would be a good challenge, and she should have been on paper, and by her recent performances, a much better challenge. But Shevchenko looks like she's on a completely different plane again. She was pretty much untouchable in that fight.
I just couldn't get over the size of her compared to her. She was just massive. Just manhandling her. Just getting the body lock, and she was doing a lot of those boom trips, you know, when you get like a body lock, locking the overhook arm, and then like stepping around to the hip and just tripping her, you know. There's like their judo style takedowns, and they're very effective. Like, a lot of wrestlers like using them too, but I mean, just body lock, takedown, trip, body lock, takedown, trip, just every time. And it just seemed like that Andrade just didn't have the strength to manage her at all. I think it was just like a real strength thing. Like, I feel like she was just massive compared.
That's where Andrade, you'd imagine her strengths would have been, that it would have been more of a wrestling encounter for her that she would have tried to force more of it. But as soon as Shevchenko got the first takedown, and there could have been 7 or 8 in the first round alone,
Yes.
She looked like she was in no man's land. It was going to be a bad night very quickly.
I think when you have like I think that there's a lot to be said for. I know we've seen a lot of guys go up in time from weight divisions, but I think there's a lot to be said for having size in your division. You know, because if your skill, if you do your weight cut correctly, and you're not like so depleted on a fight week that you can't perform, and you have serious size behind you going into your weight division, I feel like that size and strength accompanied with your technique and your mental resilience, it really plays a huge part into it. Like I'm sure Andrade was in the best shape of her life, and the only thing that really seemed to be the difference there was just sheer size and strength. Yeah. You
know, in the penultimate fight of the night, we saw actually before we take a look at that one last one on Shevchenko, is now the time to go for Shevchenko and Nunes 3?
Ugh, I don't know. It's hard to know. Like, I mean, yeah. I mean, who else? Who else is going to fire? I mean, like, I'd love to see Shevchenko beat her, like, just to mix things up a bit, like, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
she's lost twice already, so I don't think it's the most marketable fights.
Okay.
To be honest with you. But what else are they meant to do? Yeah. So I think it will happen, yeah.
Okay. The penultimate fight was Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili. We know there was the weird kind of US versus China motive that was being touted around pre-fight.
Was there?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. It was almost that kind of was it Rocky IV, the kind of US and Russian kind of thing that was going on. there was a little bit of back and forth that was probably taken out of hand by a lot of MMA media. But again, Weili looked like, you know, she throws heavy. She's always advancing. Rose looked really, really light on her feet, really springy, very methodical. You think she's going to go low. She clocks Weili with a high kick off her front leg on the left-hand side, drops her. Referee is in straight away going, she's out, she's done. It's all over. We have ourselves a new 2-time UFC strawweight
100%, yeah.
Quick enough. It was all done and dusted in just over the minute side of things. What did you make of it?
Oh, I love Rose as a fighter and as a person, to be honest with you. Obviously I don't know her, but I mean, like, it's pretty clear to see that she's just an all-around great person. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like I love the way she's been up against these odds before, like, you know, like with Joanna, when she went into that fight, nobody thought she was going to cream Joanna like that, like, you know what I mean? And she stopped her, and same odds against her this time. She just seems to have that real kind of like Cinderella man or Cinderella woman, you could say, effect on competing. She goes in, all odds are against her, and she just, like, you know, takes it on the chin. She's able to kind of absorb that energy of being the underdog and seems to just flourish in those circumstances. So it was really great to see. I think that she's just seems like a great human being, and she thoroughly deserves it. And I have no idea what Weili was harping on about afterwards. Like, I think her ego was kind of running a bit wild there in regards to, oh, why did you stop it? And because she's not used to losing, I don't think, obviously, because she's never lost. But it was pretty obvious that, you know, Rose was not going to ease up on it was the first minute. She got dropped. She had lots of energy to keep pounding hard until it was over. So unnecessary damage if it got continued, really, like, you know.
It marked the start of a pretty good main card for Trevor Weidman. Obviously, Rose has been working with him for quite some time, as has, like you had mentioned last week, Kamaru Usman. I had to check on the time on this. It was 1:02. Oh, just at the start of the second round. That was it for Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal. It had the potential to be an absolute bore fest. It had the potential to go any which way at all. We found out that Masvidal, in the aftermath, It was his first time he'd been stopped since 2009. First time he's been knocked out in 50 pro fights. To show you that, not, everybody has some kind of weakness. There's nobody invincible in the sport. But for the manner of it, and how it happened, talk us through it.
I just think that Usman kind of like said it kind of how it was. I think his fundamentals were a lot better, as hard as that is to believe, really, like, because I just feel like Masvidal's, I don't think that his striking is actually that bad. I think he actually came in a little bit overconfident, a tad overconfident about his striking.
You could see that in the first round, though. He was starting to throw heavy very, very early. Almost looked like he was kind of wearing himself out. Looking for that knockout punch first before tapering things back a little bit and leading with the jab.
I think maybe, I don't know if that was his game plan, his corner's game plan, but it certainly seemed like that. He was coming in a little bit too heavy, too fast, as you were saying. And I think that setting things up and being like, respectful of that right hand, like, I mean, like after that, like, I mean, like, I think everybody is going to respect that right hand. He's done that to Colby. He's done that to Masvidal, and he did that to Gilbert Burns as well. Like, I mean, that right hand needs to be respected. He, like, guys need to work around that strength of his, like, moving forward, because he seems to be stopping a lot of fights with that now, like, so, and I think Masvidal kind of went in with the impression that he, pushed me up against the fence. He made it a bore fest. He tried to play footsies with me for 5 rounds last time. He's scared of my striking. Yeah, your striking is a lot better than his. I feel it most definitely is. Does that mean that he's afraid to strike with you and he hasn't got knockout power? Most certainly not. And he certainly showed that as well, and that comes to show that, no matter how experienced you are in one particular area of your martial arts game, you need to be switched on and respectful of what's coming at you at all times, because that's where you have your power. You can keep your energy and your power to push back at others, when you have respect and take responsibility for the fact that at any given moment, someone can throw something and knock you out. Like, it's that simple. It's like when if I can't tell you the amount of times I've sparred novices and they just beat me for a round, and I'm like, what the fuck happened there? Like, because they just do everything crazy. Nothing is from a fundamental place, like, like it's carnage. It's a chaotic thing, like a martial arts fight, so there's no guarantees ever. There's no such thing as certainties. And I feel like that Masvidal may have went in with an overconfidence and a certainty that, I have this in the bag in the strike, and he paid for it,
Yeah, well, we certainly saw the result of what can happen when you start to showboat and mouth off a little bit during the fights. For Usman's finish, though, it was quite. I know we've seen it before with Conor, to kind of lean in with the left hand and almost just pull Masvidal's block away and just leave him completely exposed. So when the right found a home, it looked fairly nasty.
It was the way he kind of punched through him, and he kind of like, flopped onto his body a bit. I was like, it's just one of those shots, like, when you know what I mean. But look, he at the end of the day, like, you can't feel too sorry for the guys who are competing at these levels. Like, he probably made like a huge amount of money from that. He's a well-established pro in the game, Masvidal. He's had a lot of success over the last couple of years. So look, who's to know what happens in the next while? There could be a trilogy. He'd have to do a lot of work to get there.
Yeah.
But or somebody else would have to take over the throne as champion. But
well, it's looking like Colby Covington will be next up for Usman, and it will probably be later this autumn.
Yeah, I think that's a good fight. And I'd almost put my money on Colby.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
he did come close the last time.
Very close, very close. The only thing I think that would, mess up Colby is just his personality. He's the same thing. Like, he's a little bit overconfident. And I think Usman, as much as he talks his fair bit of smack as well, like, you know what I mean? I think he's a little bit more kind of underneath it all, respectful of the threats that are in front of him, and the likes of Kobe and Masvidal aren't, and I think that's where they fall a little bit short, you know.
Yeah. Well, in the pre-fight build-up in the day or two beforehand, we'd heard that Masvidal is starting his own pro fighting league, game bred bare knuckle fighting or something along those lines.
No way.
Yeah, that's a thing that's going to start for this summer. But interestingly, Khamzat Chimaev, who we've not seen for a while and was supposed to fight Leon Edwards, is knocking around at welterweight. And for his first fight back, he's looking for Jorge Masvidal. What would you make of that?
Oh, I think that Jorge would. I don't know. It's hard to know.
Stiff competition.
It's stiff competition. It's hard to know, you see, because we haven't seen enough of Khamzat, in fairness. Like, you know, like, I mean, I think Reese McKee and John Phillips were great matchups for him with his style, you know. Yeah. You know, like, if you had to find, I'd like to think of a guy that would be like an absolute kryptonite to the likes of Reese and John Phillips' style. It would be Khamzat, really, like, you know, would he have the same success against the likes of Leon Edwards and Masvidal? No. Do we know like what the extent of his capabilities are? No. So that's why it's interesting, and you can't really call it. But if I had to put my money on it, it wouldn't be on Khamzat, really, like, because I haven't seen enough of him, like, you know.
Okay. Last but by no means least, and it's a bit of a wild and weird one, and we did reference it yesterday, and not to harp on about the Jake Paul side of things, but he seems to have he seems to have moved on very quickly from DC, from Daniel Cormier, and turned his attentions to Nate Diaz.
Oh dear, has he?
I don't even know if I want to get into a conversation about seeing.
Excuse me, French, but I fucking can't stand that Jake Paul fellow. I can't. He's such a little douchebag. Like, him and his brother. Like, oh my god, just they're everything that's wrong with life in general. Jay, like 24, and he's dissing the likes of. I don't care what marketing scheme you're doing, like, you know what I mean? There's just a line you don't cross. And he crossed that with the all-time great DC. Like, I mean, who calls out and talks to DC like that? Like, I mean, he's very lucky that DC was working, you know?
Yeah.
If they met out in the street or anything like that, he would be in loads of trouble. So I know DC. Like, I've talked to him a few times, and I know guys who are close to him, and he's a great guy. I don't know that, but I know that he's a guy that does not take shit. I know that he's an alpha, like, you know what I mean? He's like, you know, he will out alpha you. It's that simple. And if he sees you and he heard that you were talking smack about him, he has no issue with walking across a street and just cracking you one, like, you know, it's just the way he is, you know.
Yeah, so, I don't think I want to get on his his bad side.
Or even worse, he double legs you. That's even worse.
It's game over for that case before it's even started. Miles, before we knock things on the head, anything else stirring with you in the world of martial arts? Are you keeping an eye on what's been happening in terms of potential gym reopenings or things like that? Or just
I'll be honest with you, I'm just kind of going about things just with my online coaching business. I'm very busy with that, like, you know, so you know, I'm training twice a day myself just to keep busy, you know, and I'm hoping to compete later on in the year now. And you know, when the gym opens up again, I'm sure somebody will tell me about it. I'm just keeping my, you know, you could be wasting a lot of energy looking at all these guidelines all the time and restriction liftings and on and off. So, you know, I just focus on what I can do, and sure, you know, I'll be reminded when the gym's able to open again.
Well, look, if people want to get in touch with you in the meantime, how can they do it?
Miles Price MMA, Facebook or Instagram is the best. Yeah,
super. Miles Price, and he's Miles Price, I should say. I have been Ken McGuire. This has been All Things MMA on KCLR and for Scoreline.ie, and we will do this all again next week. Good luck.
See you guys.